Over the last year, creativity has completely changed the way I look at my life. A couple of days ago, I finished reading this book, A Creative Act by Rick Rubin, for the third time. And honestly, it's one of those books that feels different every single time you read it because you go into it with a different outlook or you're trying to seek a different perspective on something that's going on in your life. And the first time I picked it up, I was looking for ways to become a better creative. As someone that works in the hair industry, someone that tries to make content sometimes, I feel like I learned a lot from it, but I got a lot more out of it reading it the second and third time because I was more intentional with the way that I wanted to use some of the tips I learned from the book. Going into it the second time, I was really trying to understand how different creative people think and what makes their creative process different from some people who are just starting out. This time, I was reading it with the intention to kind of use the tips I learned to build my own career, help me as a barber, as a hairstylist, as a content creator, as someone who's been lucky enough to work within fashion now. And a lot of the ideas finally clicked for me. This isn't a book review. It's more of a reflection on what I'm learning about creativity at 19 and how it's changed the way I approach my work, my business, and honestly, just my life as a whole. Creativity isn't something you have, it's something you practice. One of the biggest things Rick Rubin talks about is that creativity isn't reserved for artists. It's a way of experiencing the world. It's about paying attention. That idea completely changed the way I think. Growing up, I always thought that creative people were just born with something everyone else didn't have. I thought they naturally came up with amazing ideas on the fly. Now, I don't think that's true at all. I think most creative people are just more observant than normal people. They're constantly noticing little things that everyone else would usually walk past. As a barber, that changed everything for me when I realized this. A few years ago, if someone showed me a reference photo, I'd focus on the haircut. Now I spend a lot more time looking at everything around it. How does this person dress? What kind of confidence are they trying to portray? Do they want something timeless or something that stands out a bit more? What type of music are they into? What's their personality like? Two people can ask me for the exact same haircut, and I might cut it slightly differently because the haircut has to fit the person and not the other way around. That shift in perspective has probably improved my work more than learning any specific technique. Working Toronto Fashion Week completely changed my outlook. One of the coolest opportunities I've had this year was working on the hairstyling team at Toronto Fashion Week. Going into it, I thought it was there to learn hair. Instead, I think I learned a lot more about creativity than I did about hairstyling. Backstage, everyone had a unique and different role. The designers weren't just making clothes, they were telling stories. And that's something I never understood about runway fashion going into Fashion Week was, I thought that runway fashion was meant to be something that you don't understand. And I feel like that's what a lot of people think. But when you try to tie all the pieces together, it's really just a bunch of creatives trying to tell a story. The photographers weren't just taking pictures, they were deciding how they wanted people to feel. The makeup artists, stylists, producers, models, everyone was contributing to something different to the same creative vision. What stood out to me the most wasn't even the work itself, it was the people. I met so many creative individuals who all thought differently, approached problems differently, expressed themselves differently. Nobody was trying to be someone else. Everyone had their own perspective. Being surrounded by people like that reminded me how important it is to really just put yourself in environments that challenge the way that you think. Because you naturally become more creative when you're around people who inspire you. Creativity exists outside your own industry. Before, if I wanted inspiration for barbering, I only look at other barbers' pages. Now, I almost never do that. I'll find inspiration from architecture on my trip to Rome, at runway shows, from music videos, from album covers, from films, interior design, even from conversations with strangers. The more different things you expose yourself to, the more unique your own work naturally becomes. I don't think originality comes from trying to be different. I think it comes from having a unique collection of experiences that you're able to tie together as a whole. I've realized that creative people are always collecting. Not collecting things, collecting moments. I'll save a random album cover. I'll take a picture of an interesting building, screenshot an outfit. Recently, I actually bought this journal and it fits in my pocket. And if I ever have an idea and I'm out on the fly, before I forget that idea, I'll just quickly write it down. And then months later, I'll be editing a video, creating a hairstyler, trying to brainstorm a business idea, and suddenly all those little moments that I've collected finally connect. And Rick Rubin talks about ideas almost like seeds. Some seeds grow immediately, others need time. That's a fact. I've stopped putting pressure on every idea to become something right away. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just let it sit. Create more than you consume. This is probably the lesson I'm still struggling with the most. It's really easy to try to convince yourself you're working because you're watching YouTube, scrolling on Instagram, or saving a Pinterest board. I've definitely been there. You tell yourself that you're researching, sometimes you are. But eventually inspiration turns into procrastination. I've learned way more from uploading videos that weren't perfect than spending another week trying to make them perfect. The same thing happened with barbering. Watching haircut videos help, but you know what actually helped more? Cutting hair. Physically. The only way to become more creative is to create yourself. Creativity changed the way I see people. One thing I never expected is that creativity would actually make me appreciate people more. Every client that sits down in my chair has a different story. Every person I've met through fashion, hairstyling, content creation sees the world a little bit differently. And I think that's beautiful. I don't ever leave conversations thinking that person has better ideas than me. I leave thinking I would have never looked at the world like how they do. That's what makes creative people so inspiring. They're not trying to impress you. They're simply sharing their own perspective. And every perspective teaches you something. This year, I'm learning hairstyling while already feeling comfortable as a barber. It's humbling. Some days I know exactly what I'm doing. Other days, I'm asking questions that feel incredibly basic. A younger version of me would have hated that feeling. Now, I actually welcome it. Because every time I'm uncomfortable, I know I'm growing. I think creativity requires you to stay a beginner. The moment you think you figured everything out is probably the moment you stop improving. I definitely don't have creativity figured out, and honestly, I hope I never feel like I do. Because every new experience I have, working Fashion Week, meeting people in Toronto, reading books like The Creative Act, cutting hair, making videos, changes the way I think just a little bit every single experience. The biggest lesson I've learned is that creativity isn't about making art, it's about paying attention. It's about staying curious. It's about putting yourself in rooms with people who think differently than you do. It's about creating instead of waiting. And whether you're a barber, a student, an entrepreneur, an artist, or just someone who's trying to build a life that they're proud of, I think that's something anyone can apply. The goal isn't to become the most creative person in the room. The goal is to become someone who's curious enough to never stop creating in the first place. If you've read The Creative Act, or if there's another book that's completely changed the way you think, let me know in the comments. I love to hear it. I always love new book recommendations, and thank you for watching.